Hello everyone, my name is Matthew and welcome to the Consecration to Mary podcast, where we will prepare and devote ourselves to Mary for 33 days and finally consecrate ourselves to our Blessed Mother, giving her the full control of our lives. This podcast is available both on your podcast streaming platform and on YouTube, so you can be a part of this journey in either ways. Do subscribe to this channel to get every notification during these 33 days. We will be making this consecration using the book 33 Days to Morning Glory by Father Michael E. Gately. If you have this book, very good, but if you don't, I will leave a link in the description of the podcast and of the YouTube video from where you can purchase this book. This podcast is brought to you by thecatholicworld.com. Hello everyone and welcome back once again. Today is August 6th and from today we start our 33 days of consecration, or rather preparing ourselves for the consecration, which will end on August 8th, which is the feast of the Nativity of our Blessed Mother. For 33 days, we will be preparing ourselves to finally consecrate ourselves, our lives to our Blessed Mother. So, the whole consecration program is divided into 4 weeks. The first week, we will be reflecting on the teachings of Saint Louis de Montfort. The second week, we will be reflecting on the teachings of Saint Maximilian Kolbe. On the third week, we are reflecting on the life and teachings of Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. On the fourth week, we will be reflecting on the life and teachings of Pope Saint John Paul II. And on the last 5 days, we will have a synthesis and review of all that we have done together. Finally, on the day of consecration, we will have a glorious new morning. So today is August 6th, and we start with our first week. On this week, we shall focus on the example and words of the first great prophet of Marian consecration. We shall begin by learning about his life, and then we shall ponder the essential aspects of his Marian teaching. Please note, we do not have space here to cover every essential element of de Montfort's teaching. Omitted elements will be covered in later weeks. Day 1. The Passionate Saint of Brittany. Take a look at a map of France. Now notice something about its shape. See how one part sticks away out almost as if it were running away from the rest of the landmass, ready to dive off into the Celtic Sea. That jutting arm in the northwest of the country is called Brittany, and that is where St. Louis de Montfort grew up. There is something special about Brittany that seems to have had an influence of St. Louis, its Celtic roots. Brittany is considered one of the 6 Celtic nations, meaning that the Celtic language and culture still survive. So scratch that part about Brittany being ready to dive into the Celtic Sea. It is already in and swimming. And one part of Celtic culture seems to have seeped deeply into the heart of St. Louis, the high-spiritedness of his warrior. From ancient times, Celtic warriors have struck terror in the hearts of their enemies. If you have seen the movie Braveheart, you know what I mean. Think of the fearless figure of St. William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, and his crazy crew of Scottish Highlanders who take on an English enemy many times their size. This shows something of the Celtic fighting spirit, but real-life version is even more intense. Often wearing nothing but blue battle paint, real Celtic warriors would work themselves into a bloodthirsty frenzy, rush into a combat screaming their heads off, and wildly slash, bash, and slice away at their enemies with huge two-handed swords. These fierce fighting men, despite their lack of discipline, armor, and order, were extremely effective in battle because of their unmatched passion and ferocity. Throughout history, nobody has wanted to mess with the crazy Celtic warriors. St. Louis' dad, Jean Grignon, must have been descended from these wild men warriors, for nobody wanted to mess with him either. In fact, he was known for having the most fiery temper in all of Brittany. As one author puts it, he was a volcano frequently erupting. St. Louis, on the other hand, was as gentle as a lamb, right? Wrong. He confessed that his temper was just as bad as his father's. But Louis channeled his fiery passion not to threats and violence but to laboring for the greater glory of God. Well, except for the time he knocked out a couple of drunks who would not stop heckling him while he preached. We can get a better sense of Louis' remarkable zeal if we reflect on his short but incredibly productive priestly life. When he died in 1716, St. Louis was just 43 years old, having been a priest for only 16 years. Tireless labors to bring souls to Jesus through Mary, especially by his preaching, an endless succession of parish missions, brought about his early death. As if these life sapping labors were not suffering enough, Louis had to bear vicious persecution from the clergy and Jansenist heretics, even to the point of being physically attacked and poisoned by them. Despite all this, our indomitable warrior kept advancing on the battlefield, continuously preaching his trademark path to Jesus through Mary. In fact, when leaders in the church in France thought they had put an end to his work, Louis walked the 1,000-mile journey to Rome and asked the Pope for his wisdom and counsel. The Pope not only told him to go back to France and continue preaching, but also awarded him the title Apostolic Missionary. Obediently and joyfully, our saint returned to France, where he continued to preach, write, and patiently bear his many sufferings out of love for Jesus, Mary, and souls. St. Louis' passion and zeal lit a fire in a young Karol Wojtyla, the future Pope John Paul II. A few years before his death, the Pope was able to realize a lifelong dream and visit de Montfort's tomb. He said on that occasion, I am happy to begin my pilgrimage in France under the sign of this great figure. You know that I owe much to this saint and to his true devotion to the Blessed Virgin. Now, what about us? Do we have a fire in our hearts as we begin this retreat? We should, or at least we should strive for it. Desire and generosity are key ingredients to making a successful retreat. May Mary intercede for us, and may the Holy Spirit fill us with a passion to conscientiously make these days of retreat, despite any fatigue, distractions, or obstacles. And let us remember that we may have to endure in terms of the discipline of prayer is nothing compared to what St. Louis went through. And we will be interceding for us, relying on his intercession and that of the Mother of God. Let us resolve right now to dedicate our lives to this retreat and the intensity and zeal of a Celtic warrior, though without all the face paint and screaming. Today's prayer: Come, Holy Spirit living in Mary, help me to make this retreat with generosity and zeal. I thank you for listening to this podcast on day one, and I ask you humbly to share this with anybody who wants to make the consecration to our Blessed Mother. Share this podcast, either the podcast link or the YouTube link that you find in the description. And if you haven't followed, please do follow and click on the bell notification, because every day you will be receiving notifications, because this will continue for the next 33 days. Thank you so much, and God bless.